today we'll be taking a closer look at why the pilots of this plane are dumping fuel and what that's got to do with a plastic water bottle. So let's get started. In this video here, it's pretty obvious that something is off with this plane. Why is there white spray coming out of the rear of the wings? This plane is currently performing the Jettison procedure, or better known as fuel dumping. Your imminent reaction probably is, what a waste and pollution of the environment. Why would pilots dump costly fuel overboard which you as a passenger has just paid for? Did the pilots miscalculate the fuel they need from the trip to A to B? And before we can answer those questions, we have to look at some weight limitations of airplanes. So for today's video, we'll be using a Boeing 747, and in a minute you'll see why. So imagine you and your crew are sitting in a 747 preparing for a flight from Munich to Los Angeles. So the airplane's current weight is the so-called dry operating weight. Then the payload comes on board, this is the passengers and the cargo, and then you have the so-called zero fuel weight. Then the fuel truck connects to the wing and fuels the plane with the calculated fuel to reach your destination, the so-called trip fuel, plus contingency, plus alternate, final reserve, and taxi fuel, or better known as the block fuel. If you add up all weights, you have your today's takeoff weight, but for today's video, the landing weight plays a more important role. So the Boeing 747's maximum landing weight is 312,000 kilos, which is a structural weight limit. Any landing weight above the maximum will have the consequence that the plane most probably will have suffered internal damage and its structural integrity will be impaired after a so-called overweight landing. And this is where the plastic water bottle comes to play. Now with a little imagination, you here can see our 747 shortly before landing at Los Angeles. So this water bottle shows the remaining fuel, the passengers and cargo, and the crew plus the actual weight of the plane minus the burnt trip fuel, and you can see the landing weight is well below the maximum landing weight. Let's drop the bottle out of a height relative to the plane's weight and vertical speed upon touchdown. As you can see, no damage. Now let's say we're just crossing the Atlantic and your senior cabin crew member comes into the cockpit stating that one of her passengers just had a heart attack. Now the flight attendants and an onboard doctor are doing their best to help the passenger, but decide that the passenger immediately needs to get to a hospital. The nearest suitable airport is Dublin. You quickly check your current airplane weight and realize you're highly overweight for an immediate landing. So back to our imaginary plane, the same airplane, same passengers and luggage and crew, but loads of yet unburned fuel, increasing your current landing weight, which is obviously way above the maximum limit. Meaning if you now try to immediately land the plane, this could potentially happen. Your plane could suffer severe structural damages resulting in months of repairs or even irreparable damages, leading to a total hull loss. Also keep in mind, higher weight results in a higher landing speed, increasing the stop margin, creating a potential runway overrun. So what do? This is where the fuel jettison procedure comes to play. To quickly reduce the airplane's weight, the pilots open the spring-loaded valves via the fuel dumping panel, and the now unnecessary fuel gets literally dumped overboard. It leaves the aircraft through a specific hose on each wing, usually closer to the wingtip and further away from the engine. Hey guys, quickly to the drawing board. This is the current weight the airplane has right now. This is the maximum landing weight. And then you subtract that from that and you get the weight you have to lose. So those are the 77 tons we have to lose in order to not be above the max landing weight in Dublin. So as previously mentioned, the fuel dumping rate of the Boeing 747 is 2 tons per minute, but you also have to add the fuel burned during that time, and the 747 burns 12 tons per hour, so you have to calculate how much it uses per minute and then add that to the fuel dumping rate. Okay, here we have the calculation. 12 tons equals 60 minutes. 1 minute equals how many tons? So you got the 12 tons right here times 1 minute divided by 60 minutes, crosses out the minutes, gives you 0.2 tons per minute, which you have to add onto the fuel dumping rate of 2 tons. Okay, so here we have the final calculation. We have 77 tons divided by 2.2 tons per minute, and that equals 35 minutes for the fuel dumping procedure. Another important fact is to mention that the dumping operations have to be coordinated with air traffic control. So ATC can take precautions to keep other aircraft clear of such areas. And if applicable, the procedure is usually accomplished at high altitudes where the fuel will dissipate before reaching the ground. So once you've reached a landing weight below the maximum weight, you set up for approach and perform a normal landing.